My wife cheated with our accountant, siphoning off over $200, $0 from our joint account, then seduced my best friend during the meltdown. Now she's trying to claim half my family estate worth $1.5 million in a bitter divorce battle with legal twists I never saw coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, I thought I knew everything about my wife. We had been married for 8 years, built a life together, or so I believed. She seemed perfect, beautiful, smart, charming. We had a good life, or at least I thought we did. But I'll tell you what. One night, everything changed in a way I never saw coming, and it all started with a gut feeling that turned into a nightmare. It was around 2 in the morning when I first noticed something was off. Had gone out with her friends that evening, which wasn't unusual, but her phone kept buzzing nonstop. I was in bed trying to sleep, but the constant notifications from her phone kept me awake. At first, I thought maybe she was just chatting with her girlfriends, but then I saw the messages. They weren't from her friends, they were from someone named Alex, and the messages weren't exactly innocent. They were flirty, suggestive, even explicit at times. I felt my stomach tighten. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I waited until the next day to look deeper. That's when I noticed her phone had a new PIN lock. She'd never used one before. I tried to access her messages, but she'd set it up to block anyone from reading her texts. That was a red flag, but I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I kept my suspicions to myself, thinking maybe I was overreacting. Over the next couple of weeks, small things started to add up. She was more secretive with her phone, hiding it when I entered the room. She'd leave her laptop open but quickly shut it when I came near. She started canceling plans with me, claiming she was busy with work. Yet I'd catch her sneaking around, getting calls in private or deleting texts. I even noticed she was more distant, less affectionate, her eyes darting away whenever I looked at her. Then one day I decided to check her bank statements. I know, probably not the most subtle move, but I was desperate for answers. What I found made my blood run cold. Over $200, $0 siphoned off from our joint account. Money I thought was dedicated to our mortgage, our kids' college fund, our future. It was gone, all transferred to an account I didn't recognize. The transactions were frequent and I could see the pattern. Large sums going out over the past 3 months, mostly to a supposed accountant named Mark. That's when I started putting the pieces together. Had been seeing Mark, our accountant, behind my back. I remember him being a decent guy, professional, nothing suspicious about him, until now. The more I looked, the more I realized how deep this went. She was not just cheating on me, she was stealing from us, from our family's future. The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. But what hit me hardest was what I discovered next. Wasn't just cheating. She was also seducing my best friend during the fallout. I found texts, dirty, explicit messages between her and she was telling him she was unhappy, that I was boring, that she needed excitement. And the idiot was falling for it. They met up, I'm sure of it, because I saw pictures of her at a bar with his arm around her waist, both of them smiling like they were the only two people in the world. That was the moment I realized my entire marriage was a lie. My wife, my supposed partner, was out there screwing around with my best friend, stealing from us and lying through her teeth. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mind was a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, and sadness. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. How could she do this? How could she be so manipulative, so cold? I kept asking myself, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough? But deep down, I knew it wasn't about me. It was about her complete lack of respect, her greed, her need for excitement at any cost. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up, going through every message, every transaction, every sign that I had missed. I felt sick, betrayed, humiliated. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been lying to my face for months. I kept thinking about the life we built, the plans we made, the family we were supposed to have. All of it was crumbling before my eyes, and I had no idea how to fix it, or whether I even should. That's when I made a decision. I was done pretending everything was okay. I knew I had to confront her, face her lies, and figure out what I was going to do next. I didn't want to just walk away, but I also couldn't imagine staying with someone who had betrayed me so completely. I was angry, hurt, and more confused than I'd ever been. But I knew one thing for certain. My life was about to change forever, and I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was twisted in knots. I kept replaying everything I found last night, the texts, the bank transfers, the pictures of with. The betrayal was so raw it felt like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. I knew I couldn't just confront her blindly. I needed a plan. I needed to be prepared for whatever she threw at me. I decided I'd gather more evidence before I said a word. I started digging into her phone, trying to find more proof of her affair with and the money theft. It wasn't easy. She was careful, deleting messages and trying to cover her tracks, but I was persistent. I installed a spy app on her phone when she wasn't looking, tapping into her messages, calls, and even her location. It was invasive, yeah, but I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Over the next couple of days, I learned more than I bargained for. Was not only cheating on me with but also working with Mark, our accountant, to siphon off money. She'd been funneling funds into an offshore account, hiding her tracks behind shell companies and fake invoices. The amount she stole, 200 or more, was staggering. It was enough to ruin us if it ever came out. And the worst part, she was planning to claim half of our estate, which is worth around $1.5 million in the divorce. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. She was scheming, lying, and manipulating everything. There was a part of me that felt numb, like I was watching some terrible movie unfold in real life. But I also knew I had to act fast. If she was planning to take half our estate, I needed legal help. I started looking for a lawyer who specialized in financial betrayal and complex divorces. I didn't want her to get away with this, not without a fight. Meanwhile, she kept up her act. She was still pretending to be the perfect wife, acting innocent whenever I confronted her about her strange behavior. She'd throw tantrums, call me paranoid, accuse me of not trusting her. She told me I was imagining things, that she loved me and that I was crazy for suspecting her. But I knew better. I saw the way she looked at, the way she lied about where she was, the way she dismissed my concerns. She was a master manipulator, and I was starting to see through her facade. One night, I decided I had to catch her in the act. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, pointed at the sofa where she usually sat when she was on her phone. I wanted to see if she'd slip up. That evening, she was acting more nervous than usual. She kept checking her phone, texting rapidly, and packing around the house. Eventually, she got a message, and her face lit up with a sly smile. I watched her pick up her phone and start typing. That's when I heard her talking to someone, not on the phone but through a messaging app. Her voice was hushed, but I could make out some of her words. She was telling someone she was ready for tonight, that is coming over, and that she couldn't wait to see him again. My blood ran cold. I finally had proof she was planning to meet, maybe for sex, maybe more. I felt rage boiling inside me. How could she do this to me, to us? I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I couldn't do it without a clear plan. I decided I'd record everything she said and do it at the right moment, when I could catch her red-handed. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that I had all the evidence, and that she couldn't lie her way out of it anymore. The next morning, I sat her down. I told her I knew about the affair, the money, everything. I laid out all the evidence I'd gathered, the bank transfers, the texts, the recordings. Her face twisted into a mask of fury and disbelief. She spun stories, lied, tried to deny everything. She claimed she was just stressed, that was just a friend, that Mark was just doing his job, and that the money was for a secret project she was working on. She called me jealous, paranoid, and said I was making everything up. But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I told her I was done, that I knew she'd been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I wanted full custody of the kids, and that I was going to take her to court over the money she stole. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time in a long while, I saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who had destroyed everything we built. As she yelled and tried to spin her tales, I realized I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, but I was also determined to fight back. I wasn't going to let her walk away with half our estate, not without a fight. I had to protect my future, my reputation, and most importantly, my kids. That day marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where I refused to be a victim anymore. After that confrontation, everything started moving fast. I had never imagined my life would turn into a legal battlefield, but here I was, hearing lawyers, gathering more evidence, and trying to piece together how deep her betrayal went. His reaction was classic. She played the victim, crying crocodile tears, claiming I was crazy, saying she loved me and everything else she could think of to turn the tables. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I had seen too much, heard too much, and most importantly, I had proof. I found myself in a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and a strange sense of clarity. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone, stealing our money, seducing my best friend, lying to my face every day. It was a gut punch I wasn't prepared for. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? How could I have been so blind? But I knew dwelling on that wouldn't do any good. I had to focus on what was next. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in high net worth divorces and financial betrayal. We sat down, went through all the evidence I had collected, and devised a game plan. Her plan was to claim half of the estate, which was worth around $1.5 million. I knew I had to fight that. I also wanted full custody of the kids, knowing his behavior had become increasingly unpredictable and manipulative. I wasn't about to let her turn the kids against me or use them as pawns. The lawyer advised me to prepare for a long legal battle. His accusations and her attempts to spin stories would be relentless. She was already trying to paint me as an untrustworthy husband, claiming I was paranoid and controlling. She even tried to accuse me of abusing her just to get sympathy and sway the court's opinion. It was clear she was willing to go to any lengths to protect herself and her new lifestyle, whatever that was. Meanwhile, I was watching her more carefully. I caught her sneaking out at night, meeting in secret. I installed some hidden cameras around the house and even followed her once. I didn't want to be reckless, but I needed to see what she was up to. Sure enough, she was meeting at a nearby hotel, sometimes late into the night. I saw the way they looked at each other, like they were the only two people in the world. It made me sick, but it also confirmed everything I'd suspected. One afternoon, I decided I'd confront directly. I found out where he worked and I showed up unannounced. I introduced myself, told him I knew about the affair and that I had all the evidence. He looked surprised, then defensive, then guilty. I told him that I wasn't going to let him destroy my family, that if he kept messing around with my wife, he'd regret it. I didn't threaten him outright, but I made it clear I wasn't going to back down. That confrontation was a turning point. Admitted they'd been seeing each other for a few months, that had seduced him while I was busy working or trying to keep the family afloat. I felt a strange mixture of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd been so deceitful, and sadness because I'd lost someone I thought I knew. I realized I couldn't save my marriage, but I could at least protect what was left of my life, my children, my reputation, and my future. In the days that followed, I focused on getting my ducks in a row legally. I gathered bank statements, recorded her meetings, and prepared for the divorce proceedings. I also started to distance myself emotionally. No more late-night conversations, no more trying to fix what was broken. I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself but for my kids. His manipulative side was starting to show more clearly. She was trying to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining her life, but I refused to be swayed. I had made up my mind. The most unsettling part was realizing how much I'd trusted her. I had always believed in honesty, in sticking together through thick and thin. But she had been lying right in front of me, hiding her affair, stealing our money, and planning to take everything I had worked for. It made me question everything about our relationship and whether I'd ever truly known her at all. As I sat in my lawyer's office, going over the paperwork, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with dread. Relief that I was finally taking control, fighting back against her lies. Dread because I knew this wasn't going to be easy, was cunning, and she'd do whatever it took to win, whether that was manipulating the court, spreading lies, or trying to turn the kids against me. But I was determined. I'd come too far to back down now. I was ready to face whatever came next, even if it tore me apart in the process. The legal process dragged on longer than I expected. Every time I thought I had her cornered would come back with some new twist. She started claiming I was abusive, that I was an unfit father just to sway the court's opinion. Of course, everything about the affair and the theft. Her tears and accusations were relentless, but I had enough evidence, recordings, bank statements, witness testimonies to prove her lies. The court hearings were brutal. Played the victim, crying about how hard her life was, how I was controlling, how she just needed freedom and happiness. She spun stories about how she was only trying to save us from financial ruin, that she'd only done what she had to do. It was all a lie, but I could see how convincing she was. She knew how to manipulate the system, how to turn people against me. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep my composure. I focused on protecting my kids, was already trying to turn them against me, saying I was a terrible father, that I didn't love them. It hurt more than I can say, seeing her try to poison their minds while I was just trying to be a good dad. I made sure to document every interaction, every time so I could show the court I was doing my best. The turning point came when I uncovered even more about her financial schemes. Turns out she was just siphoning money into offshore accounts. She was also funneling some of it into her personal accounts, buying expensive jewelry, designer clothes, and even a new car. She'd been living a double life, spending money she stole from us to fund her new lifestyle. I found receipts and bank transfers that confirmed she'd been laundering money through her sister's account, which she'd recently opened to hide her tracks. That was the moment I knew I had to go all in. I hired forensic accountants to dig into her financial records, to trace every dollar she'd stolen. The evidence was overwhelming. She was planning to claim half of everything, including the house, our savings, and even the family heirlooms. I knew I had to fight hard if I wanted to keep what was rightfully mine. One thing that really hit me during this whole process was how much had lied to her friends and family. She told everyone she was the victim, that I was controlling and unfaithful. But I had proof of her affairs, her thefts, her manipulations. I even had a few friends who had confided in me, saying they knew she was cheating but didn't want to get involved. It was a sickening realization, how much she'd lied, how many people she'd deceived. I also started to realize how much I'd been blinded by love. I kept asking myself, why did I stay so long? Why didn't I see it coming? The truth is, I was comfortable, I trusted her, and I wanted our marriage to work. But her actions proved she was a different person altogether. I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. I had to accept that the woman I loved was gone, replaced by someone selfish, manipulative, and dangerous. In the meantime, I kept my focus on the kids. I wanted them to see that I was there for them, that I was fighting for their future. I hired a child psychologist to help us navigate the mess, to ensure they wouldn't be too affected by all the chaos. It was hard, seeing them confused, asking questions about why mommy was acting differently, but I did my best to stay strong for them. As the court date approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew would do everything she could to win, to keep the money, the house, and the kids. She was already spinning more lies, trying to paint me as the villain, but I had the truth on my side. I knew I had to stand firm and fight for what was rightfully mine. I wasn't going to let her steal everything I'd worked for or ruin my relationship with my children. Looking back now, I realize how much I've learned through this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most. I've learned to rely on my instincts, to stand my ground, and to never let betrayal slide without consequences. I also learned that sometimes, the only way to protect yourself is to fight back hard, legally, emotionally, and financially. I still have a long road ahead, but I'm stronger than I was yesterday. And I know I'm not alone in this. The day of the court hearing finally arrived, and I was a nervous wreck. All the evidence I'd gathered, all the sleepless nights, and the months of fighting had led up to this moment. I sat in the courtroom, feeling the weight of everything I'd lost and everything I was fighting to keep. Was there too, looking polished and composed, trying to project that innocent victim vibe she loved to wear. But I knew better. I saw through her act. The judge listened carefully as our lawyers presented the evidence. I was able to recount everything: her secret meetings with the stolen money, her lies, her manipulations. I had recordings, bank statements, witness testimonies, and expert reports from forensic accountants. Tried to deny it all, claiming I was just jealous, that I was trying to sabotage her, but the truth was staring everyone in the face. One of the most critical moments came when the forensic accountant about the extent of her financial theft. The numbers were staggering: over $200, $0 siphoned off, hidden in offshore accounts, laundered through shell companies. The judge looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and anger. I could see her trying to compose herself, but her facade was cracking. She had no way to deny the evidence that proved her guilt. Meanwhile, I was feeling a strange mix of relief and anger. Relief because I finally had everything laid out in the open, and anger because I knew she would try to manipulate the court even more to get what she wanted. She argued that she deserved half of everything, that she was entitled to the estate, and that I was an untrustworthy husband who abused her emotionally. It was a typical tactic, playing the victim, twisting facts, trying to turn the judge against me. But I stayed calm. I had prepared for this. I had a lawyer who was sharp and relentless, countering her claims with facts and evidence. I also had prepared a statement which I delivered with conviction, explaining how her betrayal had shattered our family and how I only wanted what was fair: full custody of the kids, protection of my assets, and justice for what she'd done. The judge took everything into consideration. After hours of testimonies, presentations, and cross-examinations, the ruling was finally announced. She was ordered to pay back the stolen money, which she had no choice but to do. The court also granted me full custody of the kids, citing her manipulative behavior and her financial misconduct. As for the estate, the judge awarded me the house and most of the assets, with her receiving a significantly reduced share, enough to make her furious but not enough to ruin me. The moment I heard the verdict, I felt an overwhelming sense of victory but also exhaustion. I had fought so hard, not just legally but emotionally. I knew wouldn't go quietly. She immediately started protesting, claiming the judge was biased, that she was the real victim, and that I was trying to ruin her life. But I didn't care. I knew I had done everything I could to ensure justice. After the court session, stormed out, screaming and crying, trying to rally her supporters. I stayed behind to sign the final paperwork and to meet with my lawyer. I felt a strange sense of closure, like I'd finally taken back control of my life. The hardest part now was rebuilding, healing, and moving forward, especially for the kids. In the days that followed, I began to piece my life back together. I moved out of the house, found a new place for myself and the kids, and started therapy. I knew I needed to process everything: her betrayal, the pain, the loss of trust. But I also knew I couldn't let her win completely. I was determined to be a better father, to give my children stability and love, and to learn from this nightmare. Looking back, I realize how much this experience has changed me. I've become more cautious, more aware of red flags, and more committed to protecting myself and my family. I've also learned that sometimes justice is hard-won, but it's worth fighting for. People can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways, but in the end, you have to stand your ground and do what's right. That's what I intend to do from now on. Keep moving forward no matter how hard it gets. Now that the dust has settled, I find myself sitting here reflecting on everything I've been through. It's been a hell of a ride, one I never wanted to take, but one I'm grateful to have survived. The courtroom victory was just the beginning. The real work was learning how to rebuild my life from the rubble of betrayal. I won't lie, some days are still tough. I wake up with flashes of anger, sadness, and frustration, but I also wake up with a sense of clarity I never had before. One thing I've realized is how much I underestimated the power of trust and how fragile it really is. I used to believe in honesty and loyalty as the foundation of a marriage. Turns out, Those things can be broken in a heartbeat if someone is willing to lie, cheat, and steal their way through life. But what I've also learned is that resilience is stronger than betrayal. You can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start again, sometimes even stronger than before. Going through this has made me more cautious about who I trust and how I trust them. I've become more aware of red flags, more attentive to my instincts. I don't take anything for granted anymore, especially not the people I love. I've also become more protective of my children, more involved in their lives, and more committed to giving them a stable environment, free from the chaos their mother tried to create. As for, I don't harbor hatred, at least not anymore. I just feel a deep sense of disappointment. She was someone I thought I knew, someone I loved. But in the end, her actions revealed her true nature. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, but I know I can't be part of that anymore. My life now is about moving forward, focusing on my kids, my career, and myself. I've started going to therapy, not just to cope with the pain, but to understand myself better. I want to be the best father I can be, to show my children that even in the worst circumstances, you can come out stronger. I've also learned to forgive, not necessarily her, but myself. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment, about accepting that what happened is part of your story but doesn't have to define your future. Looking back, I see this as a harsh lesson in resilience, trust, and self-awareness. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. I've learned I'm capable of more strength than I ever thought possible. I've learned that justice, while sometimes slow and messy, can be achieved if you stand your ground and fight for what's right. So I move on. I keep my head high and my heart open to new beginnings. I know I'll face challenges ahead, but I also know I've already survived the worst, and that gives me hope. Hope that someday, I'll look back at this chapter not with bitterness, but with gratitude, for the lessons learned, for the strength gained, and for the chance to start over.